All was cleaner today, a little bit more physical practice, even though we weren't in pads. A few more bumps and bruises, a couple hamstrings. But I thought the tempo was even faster than it was Saturday, and the players handled that much better. And as is usually the case, once you see film and make a few corrections, execution improves, and that's what I saw today.
With as many new coaches on offense, are you finding that they have to maybe, I don't know, lay down the law a little bit more to make sure that the guys respond to what they're looking for?
Yeah, there's teachable moments, and a lot of them are right at the very beginning. So spring was just the first one, but after summer, it's almost, you have to reestablish those roots, and so the attention to detail, especially in terms of effort, how they take the field, how they leave the field, just all the simple things are, I think there's a lot more coaching in relation to those things in addition to how we're playing the game than maybe what we've heard before.
So does that make you maybe judge their progress a little differently, a little slower at the start?
Yeah, the culture takes longer to build, but the expectations are clearer, and it's easier to see from the players who's willing and who will respond and who is a little bit behind. And that's the practice tempo makes that pretty clear.
Can you identify anybody offensively who's responding?
Well, I think I would say most are responding, and that doesn't mean that they're conditioned all the way yet or the execution is where it needs to be, but I think, and I don't know if anyone's not willing. They're just at different levels of readiness.
Bronco, how do you feel about this 5-day acclimation period? Do you like it, easing into it, or would you love to be able to have the guys just throw the pads on and go full blast?
I like acclimation, and it in covering us, I'm sure you've seen we probably go in pads less than most teams as the season goes on, and from a coach that has a defensive background, that's pretty uncommon, but I think it's smart for the players, it's smart for the coaches in terms of keeping them healthy, and in general, fall camp is long. I mean, we could be a week less and still be ready, I think. I'm not sure all coaches would agree with that, but if you handle it smartly, the main thing is get your players prepared and get them to the first game, and that's a delicate balance with as long as we have to practice.
You're allowed to put shoulder pads on tomorrow for the first time. Will you choose to do so?
I think so, mostly for protection. They're running into each other hard enough now with no helmets that are no shoulder pads that the shoulder tips are usually at this point what we like to protect, and they'll bang into each other really hard for a few days, and then that will kind of taper off and they'll adjust to that. Then you go full pads and they'll go like crazy, and then they'll adjust to that, and then we'll be ready to practice normally.
Sorry, Coach. Regarding hitting in camp, are you going to go with the same strategy you had last year and basically go with the same amount of contact that you had last year?
Yeah, unless injuries accumulate along the way, but I don't think we need as much as what maybe most people do. We'll probably scrimmage maximum of 3 times, and I think that'll be enough with the volume of plays we're getting out there now, in the amount of time we're having. I think we'll have plenty of repetition.
One of the surprises in your spring game, you had your quarterbacks go live. Will you have your quarterbacks go live at all this fall?
Not likely. That was a great time to do it in spring because if anything happens, you still have summer, but too close to actual game time now to be doing that. Even though we have a while in camp, that position, there's too much riding on it.
Only 2 practices, but are you watching kick game enough to get a bit of a vibe as to how things are doing?
So far, and when you report, it's after 2 practices, but more balls are going through the uprights and more are being struck well than I've seen. And that's encouraging. Competition sometimes does that, but Justin Sorensen has responded well.
As far as replacing Ziggy, do you have a playmaker on the defensive line you feel good about that can kind of step in and maybe make some of the plays he made?
I hope so. I feel pretty good about our front 7. Ethan Manemalayuna, remember, was starting in front of Ziggy before that. When he got hurt is when Ziggy kind of got his opportunity. So Ethan is back. Bronson is back, and I don't know if you've seen him in relation to what he looked like off his mission a year ago to now. He looks really good, and so I would anticipate that he'll have a really good season. And then we have both Spencer Hadley and Kyle Van Noy and Wani Unga. So there's I think some pretty good players up there.
Do you feel good enough about Noah's right now to maybe keep Ethan at an end position?
I think by committee between, if I were to say today, Marcus Johnson, Tuni Kanuch, and then somewhere between Meti Taliauli, Kalolo Utu, or John Raheem Peoples, even though he's been hurt, one of those three will probably be the third, and it will most likely be by committee if I had to say today. But Marcus is, man, he's done a really nice job.
Then you have a top three ends with Bronze, Remington, and Ethan, is that
And
right?
that's a really good top three.
With a faster pace on offense, you spoke of having more defensive plays. Do you think you'll find yourself rotating guys more?
We're going to have to. And I think we'll have enough, and we're working harder to develop depth than we ever have. That's the goal. If we were playing a fast-tempo team like ourselves, we'd certainly have to, based on the number of snaps we're going to play, will really determine how deep we're going to go. A little bit unknown right now.
Would that also apply to the defensive backfield?
Yeah, and that's usually a spot we don't like to rotate as much, but I think we might have a couple more players there than maybe what we have. We just got to keep them healthy to get to the games.
What is the issue with Mike Hagan? And is it the calf injury, or was he re-injured?
No, Mike has a man. There's a lot that's gone into it, but he had a knee surgery, but his IT band they did a unique surgery on that, and there's a chance he could be ready for game one, if not two. But then after the first two, there's a bye, so he'll be back early season. He's worked really hard.
The Detroit Lions released a depth chart today, unofficial, but Ziggy's a starting end, and I guess as a number 5 pick, you wouldn't be too surprised. But just the thought about him maybe starting a preseason game Friday as one of the guys there.
Man, it's an amazing story, and hard for me to believe. I had a junior college player out there today that was trying to decide if he wanted to keep hitting the sled, and he reminded me of Ziggy as his helmet was off and he couldn't breathe and he was on his knee, and he was saying football wasn't very much fun. And Ziggy looked like that a couple of years ago, and it's been fun to see. I'm happy for him.
Bronco,
Right,
you talked yesterday about, or Saturday about Taysom's leadership.
Yeah.
How have you seen that develop over his year here your time here at BYU? Just how has he grown into that role?
I'm not sure it's how he grew into it. His personality lends himself to that. His actions, his character, his example. He's just an exemplary kind of guy. And when he's so fast and such a good player, and you put it with the other skill sets he already had, he just needed an opportunity. I'm not sure it's developed a lot more than what it was. He's just been given a bigger role.
When you have this type of tempo and this type of change to the offense, how important is it to have him in that leadership role as well as everything he does physically for the team?
I think it's really important. But it's also where he's going to have to be really smart managing his runs and getting down and the hits he takes. And Ammon is doing a really nice job, as he did in spring. There isn't a huge difference, and so we're treating Ammon just like he could be the starter in one play, because again, Taysom's going to have to make great decisions on the field in terms of contact as well. Otherwise, we know what happens because we've lived that already. And so we're working hard to help him make those decisions, but also have Ammon be ready. And he did a nice job again today. All right, thanks.